Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for March 18th, 2025. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gail Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat feature, and I'll try to make sure Gail addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. And we are streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share your questions and comments there, and I'll relay them to Gail. We're going to start by talking about last week's Weekly Tittle, which was called Imagine Starting Over from Scratch. The assignment was a thought experiment based on a passage from the book Goodbye Things, in which we asked our audience to imagine a situation in which they had to choose the most important items that they couldn't live without. You remember the story of the guy having to run to his storage locker
With
or storage,
newspaper wrapped around
right,
him.
covering
Yes,
his private parts.
that seemed a little extreme, but
Let's hear from our participants in Zoom and on Facebook. Who made a list of items to retrieve this week? Please let us know in the comments. We know that at least one person did the tittle this week because YouTube viewer Lauren shared her detailed tittle report in a comment. Lauren writes, top 15 items. Purse and contents. It's only empty when being cleaned, so it's going into and coming out of storage full. Phone and charger, going into and coming out of storage attached. Blanket, toothbrush, toothpaste, underwear, soap, mattress, stock pot, spoon suitable for both cooking and eating, brush, bra, knife suitable for both cooking prep and eating, fork, and shirt. She goes on, items 16 through 25. Pants, OTC meds, bag together counts as one item. Computer, socks, floss, bowl, chair, table, shampoo, and water bottle. Now, I think in the spirit of her workaround of grouping things together as a single item, we're going to have to charge her for 2 items for her pair of socks. She goes on to say, after reviewing the list, should the worst happen, I'm going right to extended stay hotel, which will have toiletries, furniture, and basic kitchen supplies. In that case, my list would have more changes of clothing.
I love that she's gaming the system. That makes me
Right?
laugh. That your full purse equals one item, and the over-the-counter meds in one bag is one item, and so on. I can tell you put a lot of thought into it. Your thought process was very thorough, and it's interesting to know what's most important to you. Important enough to grab it before something else. And your priorities were communication, cleanliness, eating, clothing, and sleep. And I like it. I think that that's, you did a great job of telling us what your, important things were. And thanks for playing the game with us, Laura. We really appreciate that you participated. And, if anybody has time to go back and look at her tittle response to it's on the YouTube channel. And you can go and read her list and think about how your list compares to hers. It was fascinating. So thank you for sharing, Lauren. We appreciate you.
Naomi's got a hand up. Naomi, go ahead. There you go.
Yeah, I could not get past the point of focusing on what a financial catastrophe it would be if I had to buy food like ready-made or go to a restaurant or something for the number of days it would take for me to retrieve, a pot, a knife. Seriously, this actually caused me real, distress to think about.
Oh,
Because I try to, I'm on a low income. I feel like I live a lavish life on a low income, but that's because I already have everything I need.
Right.
So,
yeah.
but it's given me a greater feeling of joy and delight and gratitude whenever I actually walk into my kitchen and there are 3 pots.
Oh, yes. The luxury. It really, I
Right.
mean, we really do live so much better than so many, thousands of generations of our ancestors.
It's true. And you know, I hear you worrying about having to go and buy food, but I think you, even without the cooking implements, you could still go to the grocery store and buy things that you could eat without, you could still go and buy bread and sandwich meat and be able to eat something that was more cost effective while
Mhm.
you waited to retrieve all the things you needed. So I think your exposure wouldn't be as bad as you think, maybe. But what a great idea to think about the list and how you retrieve in what order, and what a great reflection that Naomi made, which is, "Ooh, I'm so impressed with my three pots now."
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that I have three pots to work with. So I think it's an interesting exercise to
Yeah.
go through, and Lauren dived in full steam, and she thought her way all the way out to 25 items, and I was super impressed that she did it. So thank you so much.
Well,
We loved your list.
Jaime and I have been doing a sort of modified version of this exercise because we got lucky to find an apartment complex that was offering us the rest of March for free if we booked
Yay.
before the 31st. And so we took them up on that offer, which meant we got more than 3 days. We got 25 days of overlap between the old house and the new apartment. And so we, on the first day of moving, we brought over the bed and a couch and a handful of things. And then every day Jaime's been going back over there, packing things and cleaning, and then loading up the car with whatever we've decided is the next most urgent thing. It's like I will send him a little checklist via notes that says, today I need the bread knife, I need the kitchen garbage bags, and I need that such and such. And it really does that the exercise has really focused my mind about what's really essential. And then he'll bring over a random box of stuff and I'm like, I didn't need any of this. Why do we even still have all of
Why do we
this?
still have
You
all
know?
this?
Let's read some more. Let's share some more tittle responses.
Yeah, yeah.
Patty says, my husband and I discussed that at dinner last night. He would keep his bike. I would
Ah,
keep my MacBook. We only allowed ourselves one item to keep. Desert island type question.
oh, cool. And for him, it was the bike. Well, that's, you can do all of the note taking that you need to on the Mac, and he can be on the bike and go retrieve supplies some other way.
Well,
I like it.
for those of us who work in internet dependent and computer dependent
Jobs,
service
right?
industries, yeah, it's absolutely my MacBook for me. Like
Hmm.
if I'm grabbing the dog and my MacBook if I have to flee suddenly.
Right.
Ginger says, I was tempted to get my wallet and go to a hotel, but then she pulled up her list, which is one blanket, two meds, three cup, four instant coffee, five soap, six toothbrush, seven soup, eight pillow, nine fresh undies, 10 phone, 11 clean shirt.
There you go. I like
Oh,
the list.
and she goes on to say there was a weekly series competition of just this experiment. They were naked, belongings were in
Oh,
a locked 18-wheeler. They used branches of palm leaves as cover to walk to the truck. I had never heard of that,
oh my gosh, we got to go find that.
right?
How crazy. Thanks for letting us know. Now we got to go find it.
Yes.
That's awesome.
M
I mean,
says,
there's nothing like being naked to focus your mind on what's important, right? Like,
right?
wow.
M says the idea of having to repurchase anything is overwhelming.
Mm,
I get that. Yeah.
it's true.
We were under threat of tornadoes this past weekend, and I'm
Oh,
thinking, oh my gosh, right now we have half our stuff in the house and half our stuff in the apartment. Like we are two targets for tornadoes, not just one.
but it increased your odds, right? If you hit one place, you wouldn't lose everything.
Well, except of course we'd moved all of the most precious and valuable and useful things to the apartment first. You know,
All
all the
right.
good stuff goes first.
Well, maybe, you could just hope that the tornado hits the old house and declutters you by natural disaster.
I don't wish that on anyone.
All right. It happened here.
Paula says, several years ago, I put everything in storage and traveled for months. I kept
Oh,
clothes, toiletries, and my computer. You really don't need as much as you think, although I stayed with family and friends or in hotels, so didn't have to deal with sleeping on the floor.
thank goodness. That's cool. And it makes it work. When you travel, you realize you can get along with what you can carry in the suitcase. And is your life as rich in that way? It depends on what you find entertaining and fun. But yeah, we can always do with less. We may not want to do with less, but we can always do it by we can always do it by less.
Em also commented on Patty's comment. She says she uses the Mac to research what is edible on the desert island. He uses the bike to go find it.
I love it. Teamwork, baby. Teamwork. That's awesome.
All right, let's get on to our main topics. We actually have three prepared. We'll see if we get to all of them. You
Okay.
know how we are.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the usual donation destinations, charity stores, creative reuse centers, the curb. Those are like our top three, I guess, typically.
Right. Right.
But what about unusual ideas for donation? We asked our audience for their favorite suggestions, and we're going to share a few of our own as well. Today, we're going to discuss unconventional places to take donated items, plus other short topics suggested by our audience.
The whole reason to discuss this donation topic at all is because donating our extra stuff allows us to let it go with less trepidation. If we give it to a charity, we can believe that the item will get used by someone else, and that helps us not feel as guilty for letting it go. This is very helpful for those of us who worry about an item still being useful and not wanting something to be wasted. But before we get started on that topic, though, I want to put out two caveats about donating. And viewer Denise actually acknowledged it in her survey response this week, both of the comments that I wanted to grab. Denise said, I would encourage people to check any suggestions. For example, I live in Silicon Valley and our animal shelter serves 500,000 residents. They ask for cash donations and specific items on Amazon. Thus, I throw my worn out bedding, etc., in the trash without guilt. I think that wanting to do the perfect thing with our clutter really holds a lot of people back.
Amen.
And as Denise suggests, first you need to check that your donation place and make sure you call them, check with them, and make sure that they want what you have. If you drive over there and they won't take it, you'll be disappointed. And donating unwanted items just creates a burden for them. So, first, make sure they take and that they want what you're giving. And it may require a phone call to verify. It'll be worth it. Better that you make a phone call and find out that they're overburdened or they don't take that specific thing instead of driving over there and finally making yourself drive over there and then them not taking it.
Yeah, and loading up the car with 100 things, and then they only want one of them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's important to verify in these unusual situations in particular. Goodwill will take anything, anytime, but these specific unique places may not, and so you need to verify it's okay. Then, second, as she said, wanting to do the perfect thing with clutter holds us back from getting it done. Finding the exact right place and right, I'm in air quotes, to donate can take a huge amount of effort, and it slows down getting things out of the house and makes your to-do list a million miles long. When you need to get the declutter job done on a deadline or the volume you're going through is really dense, adding all those one-off deliveries to get a few things to the perfect place will really slow you down. There's already enough work to do with the big organizing project without adding a bunch of delivery runs to the list. So keep that in mind and temper taking that one item to your cousin and the 2 jars to the specific donation place and the 1 box to the third place. Those 3 runs will barely make a dent in your decluttering. So choose the things that need very specific trips wisely and make sure the trip is worth it when you go by confirming that they want it first. So that all being said, let's talk about donation options today.
Audience member Christine used one of our previous surveys to suggest this topic. Christine asked us to talk about places to take donations. She writes, I just returned a vase to the florist who delivered an arrangement for Valentine's Day. I was having trouble donating it to Goodwill, but it was easy to support a local small town florist. It felt good, and I just donated all of my music CDs and CD player to a senior citizen home in town. That felt good too, knowing these were local. I think libraries could use pens and notepaper. I was wondering what unusual places might take donations. My grandchildren play at a public park, and parents are allowed to leave some safe toys there, so there will be more toys so children will not fight over them. A few times I've accidentally left things on a bench or table at a college, church pew, or library, and when I went back to retrieve the item, it was already gone, so at least it went to good use.
We decided to crowdsource ideas around this topic that she suggested. We asked our audience to share your suggestions for unconventional places to take donated items, such as the florist shop that Christine mentioned. And here are our more favorite responses,
Jade suggested the Museum of Broken Relationships.
which I love so much.
She says there's one in LA and one in Croatia. They take objects that used to belong to your ex.
Like, what a perfect thing to do with the stuff that reminds you of your ex and makes you cry anyway. Pack it up and ship it to the Museum of Broken Relationships. I think that's so awesome. And I'm sure there must be parameters for donating. I'm sure you have to find out
Yeah,
what's
I did.
okay to send, but
I didn't do a whole lot of research into that one because I did see that they've opened one in China.
oh,
But
cool.
none of those places are particularly close to where I would be donating from,
Mm-hmm.
even if I had anything that belonged to an ex that I needed to downsize.
But I think it would, for the one thing that stabs your heart the most, this is the perfect place to send it.
Right.
Just send it
Yes. Yeah.
away, get it
Yes.
out of your life. The wedding dress comes to mind sometimes. That's a
Well,
really
or
hard one for people to let go of.
the locket that says inside, "I will love you forever,"
Forever,
or something
yeah,
like
that kind of
that.
stuff.
That
Yeah,
would be a good one.
send that on. I think that's a great idea.
Jean suggested Souls for Souls. That's SOLES, numeral four, SOULS.
Yeah.
And they're at the .org of all of that. For shoe donations, she says Famous Footwear has a collection box for them in store.
So you want to visit Souls for Souls website,
I'm going to
scroll until
paste
you, yeah,
I'm going to
you're going to
paste that
paste it
into the
up.
chat, yeah, for people in the Zoom.
Scroll until you see the donate shoes button and then follow the instructions to either look for a drop off location near you or to ship your shoes to them at no cost. They only want new or gently used shoes. But I will say that they take singles as well. NAPO did a collection um, drive with them one year and had the organizers collect shoes from all their clients, and then we shipped them off to be donated as a project. And they take singles because all the shoes that come in, eventually you get a match. So,
Well, right,
and
or there are, people with, who have had an amputation who only need one shoe.
yeah,
So,
exactly. So it's a good place. It's a good, and they package them up and they send them off to other places besides the United States as well. So the donations of the shoes get sent around everywhere. So it's a focus thing. But for those of us that have a whole lot of really fancy shoes or a whole lot of shoes that we don't wear anymore or that we've grown out of or whatever, as long as they're in pretty good shape, gently used is their parameter,
yeah.
then it's a good way to get rid of a lot of shoes in a hurry.
Well, and they cover the shipping. So you just,
Mhm.
you go to their website and you request a shipping label. So you just have to box them up, stick on the shipping
Send
label,
them your
and then I
way.
suppose drop it off. I didn't notice. I'd probably drop it off at UPS store. I'm not, I didn't.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hawthorne asked, I've heard about these events called swap parties as a way to declutter in a local manner. Do y'all have any tips or tricks on how to organize one?
I actually know about one that operates in Houston. It's for women's clothes and accessories. The organizer has a existing email list from her regular business, but it's built up over the years from regular events. She's probably been doing it for 10 or 15 years, I think. She uses donated office spaces or meeting places where a large amount of stuff can be racked up. The clothes can be hung up on racks, temporary racks, and then people can find a corner to change their clothes. She asked a few vendors to come in that are offering some new things for sale, like somebody that makes handmade jewelry might be there. There's drinks available during the event. Nothing fancy, just so that there's some water and soda there. If you go participate, you bring clothes to swap, and they're clean on hangers. And then if you bring some, then you can try on and take some home. So, and I'm not sure what the specific rules about exchange are, but I don't think it's a one-on-one. It's just like you bring some, you can try on and take some. Hopefully, the net exchange is a loss on your part. Like you give away more than you bring home.
Right.
So it's worth it to go and have it be on the rack, because part of the rules are that if you bring it to the swap, you can't take it home. You can't take your own things home. So if no one selects it at the swap, then at the end, the person that organizes it, she packs it all up and takes it to be donated as a collection. So typically a whole bunch of stuff comes in, some of it goes out, but at the end, then all the rest ends up going to be donated. So once it arrives at the swap, it's out of your house forever. And I think that's a good solution, because then you can watch people making choices about, they're pulling out a few things, and you might see some of your stuff go away with somebody. And in the meantime, you're in there shopping for new stuff that you haven't had before. So it makes I think the trick there is you have to have a way to contact enough people to get an audience to come. And then you have to
Right.
have a space that's large enough for the stuff to be set up and people to be able to do the exchanging and swapping. And if it's clothes, I got to try it on. If it's something else, maybe that doesn't matter. But it has to be a big enough space that there can be people and goods, and everybody can do their exchange thing. And then you have to be prepared to take whatever's left over and have it be donated away, so that nobody goes home with what they brought. I think that's the
Yeah.
most important thing. And
Yeah.
good luck. I hope you try to put one on. If you're interested in that, go for it.
Okay. Donetta suggested foreign university students may need items for dorm rooms and apartments. Ask at the foreign student office or the foreign student union. Clothing, clothing pantry or food pantry at some universities. Our university has both. She didn't mention where she is. Any nonprofit may take furniture in good condition, such as armchairs or sofas for their office lobby.
That's true. A nonprofit always needs to manage their budget correctly. And so uh, this is one that I would, because you have to arrange for someone to move the furniture to them, then I think it's super important to call them and be able to provide them a picture. Like, you don't want to just take your junk over there and then have it not work for them or not fit or whatever. And
Right.
so you need to give them the courtesy of, here's the photograph of what I'm trying to donate. So have a picture of it and be able to, contact the person that you think might want it, and or that could use it, and be able to send them a picture so they can say, yes, that'd be great, or no, thank you. And there's a million nonprofits out there, so don't have to Google very hard to start finding places around you that might be in need.
Yeah. Selena says, I'm in Poland and we have local community clubs where people can also exchange clothes.
Mm.
Recently, when I moved into my tiny flat, there was a clothes rack that I replaced with a proper wardrobe. The rack was ideal for the community club that my cousin works at. They also take books, jewelry, candles, toys, trinkets, pictures, mugs, etc. Someone even left some damaged jewelry and beads the other day, so I took it to reuse.
There you go. Cannibalizing broken jewelry. I love it. But that's interesting that there's a community club for that kind of exchange. That's great. I don't know that I've heard anything specifically like that here,
Yeah,
but I know that there are, like the women's shelter that has a resale store also donates furniture to the population of people that they serve when women are, fleeing a bad situation, and they leave with the clothes on their back or a suitcase or a bag, and then they get free access to the stuff that the rest of us are buying in the resale store. So there's similar things, but not exactly that kind of thing.
yeah.
I'd have to do a little more research on that one.
Here's an interesting one. Allison says, my city has a lot of little free libraries, and people sometimes leave non-reading material. I've left a few unwanted gifts that can't be donated, such as an unopened box of mints and a body spray that was part of a gift bag. Both items were gone the next time I stopped by the little free libraries.
That's great. I mean, because really, that's the whole point of the little library is that it's a free exchange. You put in something that you're really to surrender and take out something that you want. And so it's a great idea.
Now,
And
you
why
don't want
not
to,
put your extra gift bag in there?
you don't want to stuff the thing full so there's no room left for books.
Well,
But
right, exactly.
yeah,
But two little
yeah,
small
a
things.
few little trinkets. Yeah.
And it's
Uh,
a nice way to give away if you got a gift that you don't want, it's a good way to rehome that.
yeah. Nina says, I belong to a women's support group with many young women. I'll be bringing some tops I've never worn and a new address book and a blank journal that belonged to my mother. The tops don't fit. I need to declutter some gained weight. I feel you.
Right?
And and these women like to journal. I'm hoping someone will use the address book, although everyone has phones to keep track of that sort of thing. What isn't taken, I'll bring to Neat Repeats in Orland Park, Illinois. They help support a women's shelter.
Yeah, and I'm finding that there's lots of women's shelters that they have their operation function of, sheltering women who are fleeing abusive situations. And that's one functionality, but they've all sort of adopted this. We can raise money and get supplies for the women at the same time if we run a resale store. And so there's often resale stores, while they may not be
Associated
right where
with,
the
yeah.
operations are, it's they have a resale store that the purpose is to support a women's shelter somewhere else. And so good thing to look for in your area because there's probably lots of them doing that.
Sarah says, we always search out Title I schools in low-income areas to donate office supplies, art supplies, paper towels and hand soap, etc. Here in Tallahassee, Florida, you can donate art supplies to the Sharing Tree, which in turn donates them to schools, educators, etc. I'm tongue-tied today. You can also donate art or creative items, beadwork, Gail, to Big Bend Cares Artopia fundraiser, our HIV/AIDS support group gala.
Oh, that's cool. So, one way to, if you have some artwork that you've been accumulating, that you've been making, donating it to a fundraiser for a cause is a great idea. Why not do that?
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Or
of the person who it's been a while, but she was talking about all of her lifetime of paintings that she
right,
had worked
yes.
on,
Yeah.
and what a great thing to send those off to be items in a fundraiser.
Yeah.
I like it.
Christine shared several great suggestions, including this one. I think this is probably not the Christine who suggested the topic.
Right.
Christine says, I contacted our town high school music teacher and donated some professionally framed large jazz art posters to the music department of our town high school. The band teacher hung them in the band room and music wing hallways to inspire the jazz music students. Since my children had played in the school's jazz band, it was so nice to give back a little for how much they had taught my children.
Oh, that's lovely. And of course, a band teacher, a music program in a high school, they don't have budget for art related,
A lot of
music related
decoration,
decor.
right? Yeah.
So, what a great idea to give them something like that that would really be supportive and, make the space a little bit nicer for everybody. I'm sure the band teacher really appreciated that. That's a great idea. I think that donating to schools of any kind is a good source because their budgets are always thin, and the previous idea of finding Title I schools so that it's a low income school anyway, their budgets are terrible. And so anything that you can do to support the teachers and allow them to do what they need to do in their classroom, I'm sure it would be a great use to everybody.
Gabriella says, when I gave up my collection of comics, I donated a stack of books by the popular German comic artist Ralph Koenig to the cafe Melita Sundström in Berlin, Germany. They appreciated the comics. I want to comment on that bit, which is that's one I hadn't really ever thought of. If you've got one of those kind of funky coffee shop slash bookstores in your town. I remember seeing such a place in San Diego. Can't remember the name of it, unfortunately, but it was one of those places that had all sorts of, it was a coffee shop primarily, but it had all sorts of reading material. And I think it was kind of a leave something, take something kind of
kind of place.
situation.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, for those reading materials that are still sort of dear to your heart, but you just don't have room for them anymore, a place like that would be great. Give it away to someone a place where someone is going to find it interesting.
Right. And I think it's important to note you can't dump your whole library there.
No, right.
This is not,
Yeah.
this is like, take your collection of 10 books or whatever and donate. That's the goal in a situation like this. You can't offload a huge amount to them, but you can, like, she had a specific German comic, and so that it made sense to where she took it. And so if you have some targeted books that make sense where you take them, it would be worth the effort.
And Gabriella shared another one. This one's this one's pretty niche, but she says, I presented a large number of vintage buttons to a small local store specializing in buttons. The owner picked a few sets and told me he was really happy to have found some buttons identical to those his mother used to wear.
Yeah, buttons is one of those things that people collect. And, he probably didn't want the whole collection, but the fact that he picked a few of the sets tells you that she had some things that were interesting to collectors. And, some of them went to Free to a Good Home. So that was wonderful. And I think that's the kind of, if you have something that's collectible like that, there's other people collecting it, finding out how to interact and intersect with the people that collect that kind of stuff is a way for you to let that stuff go to somebody else who would appreciate them.
Okay, let's see. Sorry, lots of comments going on. Um, all right. Respondent C, just the letter C, suggested several different things. One, empty reusable glass jars to a charity that makes soups and meals for the homeless.
Mhm.
Number two, saving the plastic caps of plastic bottles and donating these to an artist who uses them to melt the plastic and makes whimsical objects with them. Number three, and she says perhaps only in Europe, give the empty paper egg cartons to market stands that sell individual eggs, or alternatively to the Easter market stand that sells decorated eggs.
That's a good one.
Um, Donating children's toys and books in good condition to an organization that distributes these to new asylum seekers with children.
There you go.
And then she mentioned one more, which is, and this is, she says, perhaps only in Europe, used cooking oil to recycling center, used to make biofuel.
I don't know if there's a collection mechanism in the United States for used cooking oil.
There definitely, I mean, there
There's
definitely is for
disposal options.
restaurants. I mean,
Oh,
restaurants
yeah,
do it
right,
large
right.
scale, but and Liz, you're nodding yes. Are you aware of one? You want to let me find you so I can unmute you if you'd like to volunteer your information.
Yes, and there was a metal container, like a post office box that was at the library where you could bring in your used cooking oil,
Oh
and
wow.
then whoever was in charge would come and collect it out of there and put it to use. I don't know what they were using it for, but
But there
they,
was a collection box at the library. That's fascinating.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right on the
All
side
right.
of
Well,
the
so maybe
door.
you need to Google used cooking oil in your area to find out, recycling used cooking oil and see if something pops up in your area.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody's already doing it and we just don't know. That's
Okay.
awesome.
Gail, what else did you want to cover from you? You made a list of
I
some other
did. I made a list.
ideas.
So one of them that is happens in Houston. We have a location here called Medical Bridges, and the purpose of Medical Bridges is to collect leftover medical supplies, and then they get basically put in shipping containers and shipped to other countries. And so they take anything that is not medicine, basically. And so there's all kinds of first aid supplies and saline bags, and there was heparin bags, things for um, bandages and canes and any
Canes
kind
and
of a medical
walkers
supply.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
the
little
temporary toilet and the
shower
shower
stools.
chairs and all
Yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff. All those kinds of things that get collected, and it's a huge operation. And I don't know that they're exclusive to Houston. It's called Medical Bridges, and there's a local website for it here. But I occasionally take things down the road from because as many clients as I see, I pick up, here's a shower chair and here's a walker and here's some leftover bandages and here's some, there's some, a small little collection, but then I sort of will collect them in the corner until they're worth a trip. And then I'll drive them to Medical Bridges and drop them off all at once. And it's a great place because lots of times you end up with leftovers from hospital stays and things that did, got you had on repeat ship until you got well. And so there's always leftover something. And it's a great way to take that stuff and reroute it and put it somewhere where it's going to get used. And so that's a good one in case they have something similar in your area. There were the button comment that she made earlier made me think that taking excess buttons to an alteration shop
Hmm.
seemed like a great match, right? Like an alterations person is always replacing buttons on stuff. That's part of what you take it in to get the button repaired, right? And so I'm taking your grandma's button collection and just handing it off to an alteration shop. They're going to be putting buttons on clothes every day. So it's
Right.
a great place to do that.
Yep. I'm
Her
gonna.
idea about the egg cartons is a good one too, because there's lots of farmers markets and like, pop up grocery farmer markets that happen around the country in the United States, particularly. I think it's happening in other places too, but that's something that is likely happening all over the United States. And so you can find a farmer's market and see who's bringing eggs and see if they want cartons.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just share one more comment from the chat, and then let's move on.
Okay.
Paula mentions joniandfriends.org, Joni, could be Johnny, Joni and friends.org takes mobility devices, non-powered only, such as wheelchairs and walkers. They
Oh,
refurbish
that's
them,
cool.
they refurbish them and send them to developing countries. I'm glad to know my late husband's wheelchair is still making someone's life better years after DH passed.
That's awesome. Cool.
Okay, let's talk about acquiring versus using.
Okay.
Viewer Kathy wrote to ask us about acquiring versus using stuff. She writes, I heard Ed say recently that he had changed from being an acquirer of books to a reader of books, and wonder if he could elaborate on that. It started me thinking about how I need to change from being an acquirer of craft supplies to a maker of crafts.
Yes, you do.
Or I might find out I no longer want to make those types of crafts and can let the aspirational clutter go. His comment also made me realize how many books I have started but not finished. So I've been catching up and have finished 3 books in as many weeks. Um,
Good job.
I'll comment first, then we can go talk
Yes.
about survey results a little bit. I changed the way I think about books under the pressure of moving out of the house that where I'd been living and adding to my collection of books for 16 years. And
Right.
so I
And they
had
were all over the house.
something on the order of 3,000 books. And I realized, I got to move, and this may not be the last time I move.
And
Um,
imagine if you
this
had
is
just had
where
the
the next,
box up all up and
right?
like how many boxes of books would that been?
It's
3,000 books in a box. It's oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was the pressure of the move that and the choice of where I was going. I at that time I was moving in with a friend, so I was going to have my bedroom, some shared space in the living room and shared space for kitchen stuff, and that was about it. And I had to confront that aspirational versus practical dichotomy, and
Yeah.
I thought this made a really interesting survey question because a lot of people have a category where their aspirations are so much larger than their practical
Execution.
use.
Yeah.
Yeah, their execution. And
Mhm.
I was always a reader. I wasn't buying books just for the heck of it, but I was buying so many more books than I had time to read in any reasonable amount of time. And I also, wasn't taking advantage of libraries particularly. I would, go to the library for something obscure that you can't find at a bookstore, but that was about
Mm-hmm.
it. And so, under that pressure, I just said, okay, the aspirational nature of my book shopping has to end. And I made a set of rules for myself, which I've said here before, which are first we look for the library ebook. If there's a
Mhm.
library ebook, that's the best choice because when you finish reading it, it goes away
It goes
and
away. It even
you never
digitally
have
goes
to think of
away.
it again. Yeah.
Right?
And then there's second to that is library physical books. If that's the only way to get it, I'll take it out of the library. Third is buy an ebook, which sometimes you have to resort to. Like I cannot if I want to read a book that's 1,500 pages, I don't want to have to check it out of the library 6 times, which is about what it would take me, you know? And so I may just splurge on buying the ebook. And then finally, I will go to I'll go to a used bookstore and buy a used copy of something physical if that's the only way to get it. That's
But
why,
if you think about it, that list that you just made, it means that you really want that book. Like you have to
yeah,
go through a lot of steps
yeah.
before you get to buying it, and you have to go and find that specific one. And so it really, you don't do that on a whim or an impulse. You've
Well,
decided that you want that book.
and you can sort of imagine this matrix of 4 squares where, one side is harder to easier, and the other axis is more expensive to less expensive. And I
Yeah.
want to always be aiming for that easy and less expensive quadrant, you know?
Right, right, right. Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
okay, so we wanted to know who else is struggling to figure out whether you're only acquiring stuff or you're focused on really using it. So we asked our viewers and listeners to describe an activity or interest for which you acquire far more supplies or materials than you tend to use over a reasonable period of time. And here's what some of you had to say. Suzanne says, I think current me is so much wiser and exercises very good control, whereas old me would go overboard in acquiring supplies for sewing, arts, gardening, and buying select books.
And the old you that you're describing, I think we can all relate to. We all get excited about something new, and then we start acquiring supplies like mad people and end up with a huge collection. But I think it's important to notice, are you just buying supplies and imagining in your head doing it, or are you actually doing it? And if you're just buying the supplies for the fun of buying the supplies, then you're just entertaining yourself with shopping. It's just a targeted version of shopping entertainment. And you may want to back up and say, is this really how I want to spend my time or my money? And let's try to do the craft. Do I really do it? Do I really like it? Am I really having fun doing it? And if you're not having fun, then you have to ask yourself why you need the supplies for it. And why wouldn't you let the supplies go to somebody who would actually use them? And find something else that you like to do better than just shopping for supplies that that you have to store in the house and that you're not going to use otherwise.
Okay, I have to share a comment. This is an LOL kind of comment from M. M's tying back in the tittle. She says, Ed doing the tittle while still a collector of books. Day 1 covers private parts with a book. Day 2 finds book to sleep on. Day 3, etc., etc., etc.
I love that.
Okay,
Thank you for sharing him.
an anonymous respondent said, I know my needlework friends would tell me my stash acquisition is at levels of destitution, but I no doubt have enough reproduction sampler charts to keep me busy for the rest of my lifetime.
There is a point, like I'm at that point, right? Like I could never buy another bead again, and I would be able to bead until I die. I could bead for 20 years with the supplies that I have without interruption, and it would not be a problem. I'm telling you right now. And if you have a collection that is that large, we're playing the, who has the biggest supply when they die game, right? Like it it doesn't matter if you've gotten to that level of collection, then you probably have to go, yeah, I probably have enough. It's been fun building up my stash, but now I really need to do some of the the fun part. I need to do some of the playing part and not be spending money, adding to the stash. Like at some point, you have to be old enough to go, this is really enough. This is really enough for me. I can deal with what I've got. And I still buy beads occasionally, but I don't buy them at anything like the speed I did 20 years ago. And it is something that because I know what is in my house, then is it really like I need to buy beads? Do I really need to add to this collection? It needs to be pretty important for me to add it. And so I don't actively go looking for stuff. I interact with things at retreats and I interact with, occasionally when I'm standing in front of beads, I will buy them. But I don't go shopping for them online anymore. And I'm not actively, trying to shop on the internet to get to add to this collection because I got a pretty damn good collection already. I'm just saying. And I don't need to make it any bigger.
Well, and this is a good time to remind our audience of the advice we like to give about, okay, you've got a great big collection of supplies, and this applies to books too.
Mm,
You could still take a moment to acknowledge what has changed in your life, what has changed in your tastes and values since you started building the collection, and
yeah,
say, yeah, you know what? I like to draw, but I'm not going to do now that I'm drawing freehand, I'm not going to do coloring books anymore. The coloring books can go. You
right.
know, I used to read every uh horror novel I could get my hands on, but that's not really my interest anymore. Let's let those go. This
Yeah, you
maybe
can
you've
filter.
got stuff in your collection that's too easy for you because of where
Yes,
you've come with your skills.
right.
So,
Filtering that collection for the things that you wouldn't actually use now is a way to thin the herd for sure. And it doesn't involve not having that collection or not using that collection, but it does involve maybe right sizing the collection so that it reflects what you would actually use instead of what you're just holding on to because you can't, not taking the time to look at it. Yeah, it's a good way to thin it out.
here's another one I could relate to. Sarah says, party supplies, plates, napkins, and decorations for every holiday, and birthday stuff for anyone within a 10-mile radius. 5 huge bins of it under my four-poster bed. I stopped entertaining, but can't seem to stop collecting pretty paper plates.
Okay, that's a problem. That's a collection that you have that's tied to an activity that you used to do, and I imagine it gets started for moms mostly because they start having parties for their kids, and so you end up with all these party supplies, or because there's somebody's birthday, you're the local host for whatever you are part of some kind of a group that has meetings and you supply, that's all happening. But at some point, when that evolves in your life and you're not doing that kind of entertaining anymore, which you've already admitted, then keeping the massive collection is just letting that stuff die under your bed. And so, this is a perfect kind of thing too. That kind of stuff gets used in a school. That kind of stuff gets used at the Girl Scout club. That kind of stuff gets used at the church in the parish hall. There's that kind of stuff happening every week, and so you have to intersect with a group of people that are serving large quantities of people all at once, and let them have some of your collection. And it's a perfect thing to offer up too if you have a bunch of small leftovers from previous birthdays and you don't have 30 of everything, you only have 5 of something. But that's the perfect kind of stuff to offer to another mom who go to a mom's group and offer them up for small quantities at home. And so yeah, that's a collection that you need to bless and kiss and send on. And I would say, instead of having 4 boxes, I would get it down, or 5 boxes, you got 5 bins. So at least get it down to one. Keep the ones that you could possibly use or your favorite ones or whatever, and then let the rest of them go on to somebody else. Doesn't need to be propping up your bed.
Okay, Janice says yarn, aspirational clutter. I have put an end to incoming, but I am furiously working to make charity hats and head warmers.
Awesome.
So
Good
yeah,
job.
at least she's got that plan for what to do with it.
Well, and she's converted collecting to executing. So she's making hats and head warmers, which is awesome. And, that means that she's using up the collection that she had. And not adding to it is step one. And then making the products is great. So good for you.
It seems like, do you think this is true or maybe it's just that it's a sampling thing that we just happen to know a lot of fiber artists?
I
But
think
I
we.
was curious whether fiber artists was wondering if they're worse in some way than in other categories. Like I
I don't think so. I
do
mean,
do
I think they just fall in that craft collecting bin.
well, like I'm thinking of my sister who paints, and
Yes.
yeah, she's got a lot of paints, but there's a very there's a routine culling process because once a tube has been opened, you've only got so much time before it becomes useless, you
Well,
know?
yeah, so she has perishable supplies.
Right. Whereas
But
yarn is
that's
forever.
true. But it's true for the paint, but it's not true for the canvas, right?
Right. True.
And so
Yeah.
she's got a bunch of canvases, and then she creates a lot of stuff, and then she has a lot of finished work she has to dispose of. So, but
Yeah.
she has a mechanism to do it because she's got those um,
It- yeah. She's got her shops, her
shops
resale
that
shops. Yeah.
the resale shop she puts stuff in. So she can go hang her finished products up and sell them that way. And so they don't stay in her house, they stay in her shops. And B, she's managing those shops all the time. And so there's a constant turnover of stuff happening there. So she has the mechanism to get rid of the supply and to get rid of the finished product. And that's not typical for
Yeah.
everybody. So
Yeah. Okay. Linda Kay mentioned food. She says, not keeping track of my freezer and pantry and overbuying, and I overbuy what is on sale.
Yeah, that's a problem. And we all have that. The people that like to shop in grocery stores overbuy in grocery stores just like the rest of us overbuy shoes or art supplies, right? The people that like grocery stores, that collecting food is just their fun collection. Luckily, it's perishable like the paint. And either the food gets eaten or it dies and it gets thrown away. So there's at least a churning that happens uh, with food that's going into the pantry and the freezer. But yeah, keeping track of what you have in the freezer is a good idea so that as you're standing there looking at the sale, feeling like, oh God, it's a sale, therefore I must add to the freezer. Like, no, 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 the freezer's still, freezer's still full.
Right.
Um, Liz, I see you waving your hand frantically. Is that what you're doing? Okay, so she wants to chat.
Go ahead, Liz.
So I've been here 6 months. There's a lot of things I haven't unpacked. And last week somebody said, or a couple weeks ago, well, don't even unpack them, send them out. And yes, that's true. Now, I was in the loop and I saw acquiring versus using, and I realized that I was going to acquire a $30,000 bedroom set for my third floor, which is totally empty except for a little futon I'm sleeping on. I had a contractor come in and he says, oh, I just saw this beautiful bedroom set. I bought it from these people that have $1 million house. And I said, oh, I'll buy it. I mean, it was $500.
Right?
And then I decided, no, I don't have anything to put in the big dresser or the big high boy, and I don't need a king size bed, and I canceled it. So I didn't acquire it. But I was because
Yay!
I thought, well, I don't
The
have
lure
anything
of
to
the
use it
deal,
for.
right?
That was a good catch.
It's a good catch, and it's reflection of you are changing what you want to have up there. Like really, you want to be able to sleep on a bed, but you don't need all the accoutrement that goes with it if that's not how you're going to store that stuff or use that stuff. So, good job changing your target that you're aiming for. I like it. Good job.
Okay, let's see. Naomi says, I don't need any more earrings now that I lose count at around 60 whenever I try to figure out how many I have, but they
Oh,
don't take up a huge volume.
right. That's a reasonable collection if you have some place to keep them. Good job.
So the ratio is 60
What are you
earrings
calculating
per
there?
ear. I'm working out, how long. So each pair of earrings only has to, if you're wearing earrings every day, each earring only gets cycled about 6 times a year.
Right? There
That
you
seems
go.
good. Okay, last comment was from Susan, again, talking about acquiring versus using, and she says, things from Buy Nothing group.
So a buy nothing group exists for the free exchange of stuff so that you don't actually buy something. And so they're all over Facebook, they're all over the internet. You just have to Google buy nothing group in your area and see what pops up. But the idea is that people offer things to give away, and then someone else in the group that needs it that doesn't want to buy can take it away for free. And so it's a way to get rid of things one thing at a time and have it go to somebody. It gets plucked by somebody that needs it and doesn't want to spend money. And so it's kind of a way to free exchange, um, person to person, one item at a time, to prevent you from shopping and spending money on something you don't need to buy. And so it's a good way to, if you have something specific that you know is useful, you can offer it up and have somebody come and pick it up. It's kind of an urban recycling technique.
But
And it's
it
not a
comes
high volume thing.
no, and it comes with the important caveat. That's the reason I wanted to include this one was
Mm.
that for anyone who needs to hear the reminder that just because it's free doesn't mean it won't be clutter.
Right? Doesn't mean that you when you bring it home it's not part of your clutter. So it should be part of your evaluation that just because it's there offered, do you really need it or not? If let somebody have it that really needs it for something that they're trying to prevent spending, and only take home things that you really want to use. I think it's a very important point. Thank you. I'm going to add one more thing too. Somebody
Yes.
asked, and I can't remember who, I'm sorry. They sent me an email, or there was a comment in one of our channels asking about plants and saying that she's big about plants and she can um, process the plants and grow them, and she propagates them and pinches them off and starts, like, she's big, got a big green thumb. And so she ends up with way more plants than she wants to take care of. And so I think what's most important for that is a mechanism to give them away. And I have found that giving away plants through Nextdoor has been super convenient because I'm not that person, but I have plucked plants that way. They're in the neighborhood. First of all, that's part of it. That means they're in your subdivision. And so if you can go on and say, here are free plants to a good home, you just like urban recycling, you can go put them at the end of the curb and post on Nextdoor a photograph of here's all the plants I have available. And people that don't want to be buying plants can come to you and buy plants that you've grown. And that means they can take them away for free. And so it's a great way to recycle plants. Put them at the end of the driveway, take the picture, put them in your local your local neighborhood chat board, and watch your neighbors drive up and carry them off. So just wanted to throw that extra one out there today.
Gail, one quick question about the clothes swap you mentioned. Is
Mm-hmm.
that an event that people can sign up for or anything, or is it just sort of a private curated group?
No, 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 no. I'm sure that you can do that.
Can we just
Let me,
try to track that down and
yeah,
announce it
yeah,
in the
yeah.
future?
I'll
Okay.
come and announce it because I know that it's a local person here in Houston, and she sends me out an email. I get an email. I'm on the list when she's doing another one, and she does it several times a year. So um, I just need to tell you the organization to Google for, and I can't
Yeah.
remember it off the top of my head. Sorry.
Okay. Put that on your to-do list.
Okay.
All right, we are out of time, so we're not going to get to our third topic. That's okay. We'll save it for later.
All
I
right.
want to remind our audience that we will not have a live show next week, March 25th, because Gail will be traveling to Chicago for the NAPO Summit. We'll be
It's
back.
time for Summit.
We'll be back on Tuesday, April 1st at the usual time. And I think maybe we'll talk about something related to the third topic we had prepared, balancing time on projects. We're
Oh,
going to,
that's a good one.
yeah,
Mhm.
we're going to talk about priorities and time management on your organizing projects. Why don't you give us the tittle?
Okay, this week's title is Another Way Out. This week's assignment is to find an alternative way to release an item for donation that you've been keeping to give to the perfect person or organization. Identify an item that's been hanging around in your space waiting to be given away. Reflect on what obstacles have been keeping you from making the gift or donation. Consider alternative options, such as the ones we've discussed in today's webcast. And then gift, donate, or discard the item by whatever method will get it done the most quickly and with the least additional thought or effort. I think we get hung up a lot in actually going from making the collection to be donated to donating the item and getting it out of the house. Running that errand of donation is important. And so I think this is a way for you to think about, okay, it's been sitting in the corner waiting for me to deal with it. Today's the day. Figure out what's keeping you from doing it. Come up with alternatives. Get it gone. And then come and tell us which crazy thing you finally got donated out of your house. We would love to hear about it.
All right, if you're watching this on YouTube, we would love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from you, so please keep your comments, questions, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
I'm also going to put in a plug for the Patreon, cfhou.com/Patreon. If you would like to support our work, it costs us money to make this happen every week, and we would appreciate your support. Thank you so much. And I also want to say I still do virtual appointments, and I recently had somebody from the YouTube audience book an appointment with me, which was great. So I got to talk to him for an hour about what he was working on and what his projects look like. I would love to interact with you guys on that in that way. So you can go to cfhou.com/virtual, and it'll put you through our booking appointment area so that you can book an hour with me and we can talk about your project. I'm always happy to help people get past roadblocks, and it's a lot easier for me than you think. So I can listen to what you're talking about and go, oh, well, you need to do this and this and this and this and this, and then you have a plan and you can move forward. So I love to do that, and I love to do it from what feels like remote control to me because you're not
Right.
exactly in Houston, and so I get a kick out of that. So thank you so much. I'd love to have you come and join us sometime and have a conversation with you. Okay, that's all the commercials. Thank you so much. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. And I appreciate you listening to the podcast. We're so excited that we have a separate podcast audience that's listening to um, uh, the audio recording of our show. So thank you for joining us. Whatever way you consume our social media, we appreciate you, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.